Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Here we go on Titv. Alabama defensive line coach Bo Davis is leaving Tuscaloosa for the same position at the University of Texas. The 39-year-old Davis has been the Crimson Tide's defensive line coach since Nick Saban took over in 2007. He also worked on Saban's staffs at LSU and with the Miami Dolphins. Davis is a native of Mississippi. He was a defensive lineman at LSU where he graduated back in 1993. Now this afternoon, Coach Saban released this statement: "We wish Bo Davis and his family the best at the University of Texas. We've had the chance to work together at LSU, in Miami with the Dolphins, and here at Alabama, and Bo has done a great job with every responsibility he's had. I'm sure he will do the same for Matt Brown and the program at Texas. We appreciate all of his hard work and dedication in terms of contributing to the success we've had at Alabama. This is a great opportunity for Bo, and we will certainly use this as an opportunity to improve our staff at the University of Alabama." And it didn't take long for that staff to get a new addition. Chris Rumpf comes over from Clemson. We're going to list him as the defensive line coach, although the coaching responsibilities could be, they could shake up a little bit. Sal Sinceri can coach defensive line, Rumpf could coach outside linebackers, we shall see. But we do know that Chris Rumpf is coming over from Clemson. And oh, by the way, he is the assistant at Clemson in charge of recruiting Jadeveon Clowney, the nation's #1 prospect out of Rock Hill. That can't hurt Alabama that Rumpf had a great relationship with Clowney, who now says he will not visit Clemson. More on that coming up later on. And good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, who will have much more on Jadeveon Clowney and others later in the program. I'm Gary Harris. The program is presented each week by Buffalo Rock. Tonight, Rodney is enjoying Pepsi. I've got Diet Pepsi. And we begin with the latest coaching news today. We mentioned already, obviously off the top, Bo Davis to Texas, Mike Rumpf coming over from Clemson. Rodney, your thoughts?
Well, Gary, a little bit disappointed from the standpoint. I think Bo Davis was doing an outstanding job in terms of recruiting. I thought that in the state of Mississippi, he was in on several prospects. You look at Aaron Morris, the offensive lineman from Jackson Callaway, Nick Brazel. Alabama had a really good shot at Nick Brazel. Ole Miss, of course, Mississippi State still in there very strongly. I think that hurts them there a little bit. It probably hurts them there with Jamaria Roscoe in Shreveport, Louisiana. But, overall, when you look at the switch, Chris Rumpf is an outstanding recruiter. There's no question about that. In terms of the recruiting, anything that maybe is not a positive is only short term.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Jadeveon Clowney, maybe Phillip Dukes, and some others that Rumpf has recruited for Clemson that Alabama's interested in later on in the program. But we had talked about this on air and off. There had been some rumblings that Bo Davis may be looking to make a move, so we weren't caught off guard, and neither was Alabama, obviously, by the fact that the announcement by Texas was made today, and immediately Alabama has already settled on Mike Rumpf.
Yeah, and I think it was probably a mutual deal. Again, we talked about this, and, Bo Davis had been looking around, mentioned for the Florida job a couple of weeks ago. But, again, I think Chris Rumpf is an outstanding hire. He has a great reputation for developing defensive linemen. He coached several really good defensive linemen, and especially had a good defensive line this year, though they did struggle some as a team at times. But, again, he's known as an outstanding coach.
All right, good stuff, Rodney. Again, later on in the program, more on the impact recruiting that Mike Rumpf might have at Alabama. But first, Nick Saban said he wanted Alabama to prove they could finish out the 2010 season as winners. And on the first day of 2011 in the Capital One Bowl, they did that and more, embarrassing co-Big Ten champion Michigan State 49-7, and it could have been worse. Our John Huddleston was in Orlando for the game, and he has this story.
Any way you measure it, offensive production, pressure on the quarterback, winning at the line of scrimmage, this was the most dominant performance Alabama has played all season against a quality opponent. And more importantly, it is the first time that the Tide has played for a full 60 minutes.
Every game that we lost, we got ahead of in the game. We got ahead in the game, and we didn't finish.
But the Tide did not let their foot off the gas until the clock hit 0. They accounted for close to 550 yards of offense, while the Tide's defense held the Spartans to less than 200 yards total and negative 48 on the ground.
And I think on both sides of the ball, to be able to control the line of scrimmage was probably the key in the game.
We're outcoached, we're outplayed, we're out physical. They won up front, and that's the difference. That's the difference.
But beyond the stats, beyond the sheer physicality the Tide played with, In this game, they did the little things. Little things like quarterback Greg McElroy throwing a block. Little things like tight end Preston Dial hurdling over a defender.
You know, Michigan State's a great team, but at the same time, you know, we feel that if we execute our assignments, we can dominate any game we play.
I think that's the way we're supposed to play. That's the way Coach Saban been trying to get us to play the game, and it took a minute for us to gel together and go out there and just have fun and do the best we can, and I feel like we done came together and did that today.
I don't know what the reason was for losing 3 games, but maybe it was a lack of inspiration, but today they had that.
And while even Nick Saban will tell you that this squad did not reach all of its goals, it's also important to consider the big picture, which is Alabama is a program that has won 36 games in 3 seasons. That's reason enough for even the most skeptical Tide fan to be excited about 2011 and beyond. In Orlando, Florida, John Huddleston, WVUA Sports.
John, thanks. Great job, John, and Todd Hoyer did a great job down there in Orlando for us last week. We had some terrific coverage. Rodney, watching that game, I know you enjoyed it, but was it frustrating to some degree when you see, again, what this Alabama team was capable of when they were hitting on all cylinders? I mean, Michigan State's a fine football team, but I'm not so sure anybody in the country could have handled Alabama on January 1st.
And again, you know, we've seen this happen before, Gary. Some outstanding Alabama teams through the years that maybe did not, had an opportunity to play for championships or whatever, didn't quite get there. And this team certainly could have done that. But again, you look at everything that you had to consider. 9, we've said it so many weeks in a row, 9 guys you had to replace on defense, 4 first-team All-Americans on that side of the ball. So many things in terms of experience. You're going to have some chemistry issues at times, and they had some this year, I think. The injuries, Mark Ingram early in the season missed some time, obviously. Marcel Darius was hampered by injuries, had the suspension early on. From the very first game, you saw Courtney Upshaw was limping around. You had the young secondary. So many things that it took before they could develop. And again, last week going in that game, we both said, does Alabama have motivation? First thing Todd Blackledge said on the telecast was, does Alabama have motivation? Obviously, they came to play on Saturday.
Rodney, you mentioned we've seen teams like this in the past at Alabama. This squad reminds me a lot of the 1980 team.
Oh, absolutely.
Coming off 2 national championships, that 80 team was talented enough, was good enough to win it. They had a couple of disappointing setbacks, including that heartbreaking loss to Mississippi State and the 7-0 loss to Notre Dame. But in the bowl game against a incredibly talented Baylor team, a top 10 team, they absolutely annihilated them.
They did, and very similar to this game. Alabama defensively looked outstanding. That day, they could have probably beaten Herschel Walker in Georgia. And, again, Alabama people say, well, why didn't they play this way against Auburn? Well, they did play that way against Auburn for 1 half, unfortunately, but they put it together against Michigan State.
All right, coming up on Tider Insider TV, more on the Tide's new assistant, Chris Rumpf. But up next, several Tide players have a difficult decision in the coming weeks, whether to return to Bama or head on to the National Football League. We'll kind of take a look at what some of them are saying. And we'll also get to your phone calls and emails. There's the information on the screen to get in touch with us. The phone number is always 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUATV.com. And still to come, there have been rumors the past couple of weeks that Florida's D. Hart was ready to switch his commitment from Michigan to Bama. Now the prospect has made those rumors a reality. Stay tuned. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Welcome back to this first Tider Insider TV of 2011. Well, with the deadline fast approaching for underclassmen to declare for the NFL Draft, the next couple of weeks should be interesting for Tide fans, to say the least. Guys like Julio Jones, Mark Ingram, Marcel Darius, Mark Barron, and others must make a decision in regards to their futures. But following Saturday's Capital One Bowl, none of them were willing to say at this point which way they are leaning.
Coach has lots of friends that's, that he has lots of connections, so you can get a good idea from him, and you enter like the junior draft papers and things like that, and that's really all you can go by.
Not really. I'm just going to really get back home and talk to my godfather and my brothers and sisters, and we're going to come with a sound decision.
And some other Tide notes. Baseball has officially announced the hiring of former Crimson Tide standout Andy Phillips as the new hitting coach for Tide Baseball. The men's basketball team really looking pretty good heading into SEC play Saturday at Mississippi State. The Tide blew out Toledo last night, 83-41. And Sarah Patterson's gymnastics squad, a lot of new talented faces on the team, opens the season with a meet on Friday night at Coleman Coliseum against Penn State. And coming up next on the show, the Tide lands 2 commitments last week, one for 2011, one for 2012. And Tider Insider TV will answer your phone calls and take your comments at 205-348-9882, or you can email us as well. Stay tuned. You're watching Tider Insider TV. We'll be right back. All right, more on the Tide's new assistant coach, Chris Rumpf. As we talked about earlier, he's got a good relationship with Jadeveon Clowney. Clowney's saying today, telling the Tuscaloosa News, he's a good coach. He keeps it real with his players. I like him a lot. So he went on to say, yeah, I like Alabama even more now since they've got Rumpf. Clowney says because Rumpf is no longer at Clemson, there's really no reason for him to visit the Tigers. Now, Rodney, I think you and I would both agree that Alabama is battling an uphill situation with South Carolina, but there's no doubt if Mike Rumpf, the former defensive back, Chris Rumpf has a great relationship with Jadeveon Clowney. That doesn't hurt Bama's chances.
No, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. But again, we've talked about Jadeveon Clowney, and I just think it's a matter of wanting to be closer to home. I think his mother wants him to stay closer to home, and I think it's going to be difficult to get him away from South Carolina. Now, again, Chris Rumpf may do the trick, but you know, that remains to be seen.
All right, this past week was an active one for the Tide on the recruiting trail for both 2011 and 2012. I mean, my goodness, this 2012 class already shaping up, but more on that in a moment. First, though, we start with what you have been saying possibly could happen for quite a while now. D. Hart switching from Michigan to Alabama. I guess the nail in the coffin was Rich Rodriguez's tenuous situation at Michigan. Yeah, and, you know, I think D, for a long time, even before he actually committed to Michigan, wanted to come to Alabama, and I think it was just a situation with, you know, getting it worked out on both sides, and he wanted to come. We talked about that enter in January, Gary. I don't know that would happen or is going to happen. You know, last week, Clinton Dix, his teammate who is committed to Alabama, the #1 safety prospect in the country, obviously same high school, but Haseen Clinton-Dix told us last week that D is now willing to wait and come with him in June, so we'll see what happens. Let's talk a little more about him as a player. The stat that jumps out at you is he set the single-season touchdown record in the state of Florida. That's saying something. He's an unbelievable playmaker. There's no question about it. Now, obviously, if you keep up with Nick Saban and what he does with running backs generally, they're a little bit bigger than D. Hart in terms of weight. But he is elusive. He's got tremendous ability, big playability. He'll give Alabama a breakaway threat, no question about that. But also, it's his ability in the return game that can turn games around. People don't realize how many times Javier Arenas, we talk about all of the punt returns, he didn't have to return them all for touchdowns. He changed field position with his ability to make things happen every time he touched the ball. D. Hart has that kind of ability, Gary. He can be a big-time return guy, kickoff, punt, he can do it all. The class of 2012 shaping up as a terrific one in-state in Alabama. 2011 might have been a little bit of a down year. 2012 looks awesome. Now, it would have been a shock to us if Reggie Ragland had committed anywhere other than Alabama. But the big linebacker out of Bob Jones High School in Madison went ahead last week and made it official. And he wants to get a lot of these other top 2012 prospects on board with him. All the viewers, Gary, out there need to go to YouTube, youtube.com, click in Reggie Ragland's name and look at all the dunks. And he is an incredible athlete. There's no question he's an outstanding basketball player. He's going to be a linebacker at Alabama. He also plays tight end in high school. He's an outstanding kid from a great family. And he's got a chance to be a difference maker, there's no question. Another great athlete at linebacker in the class of 2012 is Chris Casher out of Faith Academy in Mobile, going to announce tomorrow. He says his finalists are Alabama and Florida State. And this is another young man that athleticism just jumps off the page. Unbelievable athlete when you look at him, Gary, and you talk about Alabama already has commitments from Reggie Ragland. You look at the safety, Eddie Williams out of Panama City Beach, Arnold, who is a tremendous talent. They're loading up on the defensive side of the ball. If they can get Casher. Casher told us last night it's Alabama and Florida State, which a lot of people said Auburn was in there. You know his cousin, Larry Casher, was an outstanding corner at Auburn. But Larry Casher also played with Damian Craig, who's a Florida State assistant in charge of recruiting Chris Casher for the Seminoles. But, you know, tomorrow he's either going to pick Alabama or FSU, and really I'm not wagering on that. I don't know what he's going to do, to be quite honest with you, but I do know that he does like Alabama quite a bit. All right, that announcement coming tomorrow. Okay, let's get to some phone calls. First up tonight is James over in Rainbow City. James, welcome into the program.
Hey, guys, how y'all doing tonight?
Doing great, James.
I'd like to make a comment. basically to our juniors. Me and millions of Alabama fans, we love what you players have been able to accomplish. I believe if the juniors come back for their senior year, they can be the winningest seniors over a 4-year period ever at Alabama. They can possibly win another national championship.
James, those are great comments. I mean, you're right on. If this senior class coming up has a chance to be the winningest senior class in Alabama football history, and I know that's something that these players will take into account. At the same time, they have to take into account their families, their future, and it's a tough call. And Nick Saban, the great thing is he's been through this at both the college and the pro level. He's going to help them, be right there with them, and I think they're going to make good decisions regardless of whether they stay or go on.
Well, they will. What, Jay Barker's senior class, what, 145? Major Ogilvy's senior class, 144. Again, the Ogilvy class, you have to remember, was a class, Gary, that didn't play as many games. But, this group, I agree with the caller. I mean, they could really set some records. They could do some things that haven't been done in quite a while at Alabama. 36 wins in 3 years. I mean, we knew when this class was signed that it was had a chance to be a great class, and it certainly turned out that way.
No doubt about it. Thanks, James, for your comments. Let's stay in Tuscaloosa and talk with Joseph. Joseph, welcome in.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Doing well, Joseph.
Hey, roll time.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
They say, now, I understand after January, 3 more months, we got April. Now, what in April is going to be? April usually with the 8A games played, correct?
Right.
April 16th.
Oh, they has been set,
yeah,
Rodney?
I think it's April 16th.
Okay.
I think
I haven't seen the itinerary for spring, but you're right. It's usually about that second or third weekend in April. Rodney says April 16th, so I haven't heard that, but I'll certainly go with your answer.
Well, again, that's what I think, Joseph. If I'm wrong, I'll correct myself next week.
All right, let's go to Fayette County and talk with Gary. Gary, welcome into TITV.
Yes, I just wondered, with Georgia playing so poorly, will that give Alabama a better chance with Isaiah Crowell?
Gary, it's a great question, and we hear it all the time, and I know it makes sense that it would, but as long as you and I have followed recruiting, I'm not so sure it makes that big a difference. I have always, for years, I bought into that, and I would say, boy, one team played great, or one team beat another team, or one team looks like they're on the move, and then that prospect would sign with Team B. So I'm not so sure it does. I think Alabama's right in there with Georgia, but I don't know that he's going to sit down and say, well, Georgia's playing poorly and Alabama's a hot team. I don't know that it works.
Well, again, I go back to what I've been saying the last few weeks, and I may be proven wrong, but I think Isaiah Crowell is headed to Georgia. I think that's a school where he's always wanted to go. It's been his lifelong dream. I think there was a time when things maybe weren't going really well during the summer and the early part of the season with Georgia. They had some off-the-field issues, and I think Alabama was seriously in there, and I still think they could possibly land Isaiah Crowell, but I think right now that Georgia is definitely the team to beat.
Yeah, keep in mind that this great class we're talking about, Alabama signed 3 years ago, was coming off a 7-6 season.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't at that point a national championship caliber class. D. Hart's commitment, does that affect Crowell at all?
No, I wouldn't think so, Gary. Again, wherever he goes, they're going to sign other running backs.
All right, keep the phones ringing. We'll take more phone calls and get to some more emails when we return here to TITV. Welcome back, everybody. Once again this week, Rodney and I are wearing shirts from the Locker Room, original elephant wear at the Locker Room on the University Strip, a Tuscaloosa tradition for 46 years, and elephant wear has taken Tuscaloosa by storm and the state of Alabama. If you're watching us but you say, hey, I can't get to Tuscaloosa, that's okay. Look up the Locker Room online. You can see their inventory of shirts and pants and much, much more, and order online. Or if you're in the area, stop by Monday through Saturday. See Alex Gatewood, Russ, or any of the rest of the friendly staff, and they will hook you up in original elephant wear from the Locker Room. Okay, let's go back and take some more phone calls. First up, Kevin in Tuscaloosa. Kevin, go ahead, my friend.
Yes, okay. I was just, my comments about the quarterback position, and from next year, seemed like this year, the defense wasn't as good, and our quarterbacks kind of got exposed. But I was just wondering if we will probably be able to get some explosive plays out of the quarterback.
All right, Kevin, I kind of find it interesting you think Greg McElroy got exposed. He only had one of the best seasons in Alabama history for a quarterback. But I understand what you're saying. I think they got a couple of quarterbacks in Phillip Sims and A.J. McCarron that can make explosive plays.
Well, again, when you talk about the quarterback position, what Nick Saban asked his quarterback to do for the most part is manage the game. And really, Greg McElroy has done an outstanding job of that for 27 games. He's 24-3. That's a big question going into next year. I mean, A.J. McCarron and Phillip Sims are two of the most talented quarterbacks to come through here in many a year, maybe ever at the same time, possibly. But, again, when you look at that, they're so inexperienced. They've got to learn how to learn the offense, learn to manage the game, and I think that's a big concern heading into next year.
All right, Bobby and Gordo, go quick, my man. We got to move.
Yeah, I just want to know, was there any new developments on Kirby Smart?
He's staying, Bobby. That's the new development. Matter of fact, he's probably going to get a raise. That's up to go in front of the board, so Kirby Smart staying on his DC.
And it's not surprising.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back to wrap it up. We've got Nick Saban's statue to talk about. He led the Tide to 13th national championship, but still no statue on the Walk of Champions, and Coach says he don't know when that's going to change. We'll have that story next. While down in Orlando for the bowl game, Nick Saban was asked, hey, when's the statue going up on the Walk of Fame? Coach said, that's not my department.
Statue? You know, that's Terry's department, department. She wanted the statue to look a certain way, so I don't even know where it's at. It's taken a while, though. I didn't have a hell of a lot to work with, I guess.
He's getting funnier and funnier. Hey, real quickly, Phillip Dukes, defensive lineman out of South Carolina, does hiring Rumpf help Alabama?
Well, it could, but again, I think Phillip Dukes wants to stay closer to home. I tell you, another guy to watch for, though, is Marlon Lane, a great running back from Daytona Beach, Maryland, 215-pound guy committed to Clemson. Rumpf recruited him. Alabama could be in there.
Okay, we'll do. All right, it's a new year, and if you haven't checked out Buddy's Rib and Steak in Northport, it's time for you to do so. The best ribs and steaks you'll find anywhere. As a matter of fact, Rodney, John Huddleston, myself, Claire Stewart may even go. We're all headed over there for dinner right now to Buddy's Rib and Steak in Northport. Why don't you meet us for dinner? And don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can find it on our website, WVUATV.com. John Huddleston will have it posted later on this evening. Well, for Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching the first episode of Tider Insider TV for 2011. We'll see you next week.